Otherwise, we'll have a silent movie.
Okay, we'll see if that works. And there's nothing wrong with silent movies. Let the meeting show that Tom McGinn and Susan Roth have joined us. And we will move on to public comments. I would say if any members of the public have anything that they would like to ask, but there are no members from the public here. So we will move right on past that section and into the public hearing. It is 7:03 PM. We will start the public hearing. Strickland Lane Commercial Building Site Plan Review, a proposal to construct a 7,500 square foot building on a 6.41 acre parcel, tax map 34, lot 3A, serviced by a driveway through 1312 Portland Road in the downtown business district and the SP Shoreland District. Signature Holdings LLC is the owner. Kevin Lord is the applicant, and Henry Hess of Tobago Technics Incorporated is the owner's agent. And I feel kind of silly now because I can ask if there are any members of the public that have a comment, because this is a public hearing. And I'm going to say that since there are no members of the public here to comment on it, it is 7:04 and we will close the public hearing and we will go straight into the discussion. The pending application for Strickland Lane Commercial Building. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Does the applicant have any questions for the board?
To the chair, I have, I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting. Was the last thing that we had talked about was there was going to be a letter from the fire person about turning around and things like that. Was that ever seen?
I can address that.
Yes, please.
Steve Doe from Sebago Technics. I think Lee J may have gotten a copy, but Henry Hess had sent an email to the chief June 6th. He had had conversations with the chief and was looking for a letter from him. So he's put this letter out, this email out to him. Basically, he's addressed all the chief's comments. 2-hour fire-rated wall has been added. 24-hour fire monitoring is called out, and a Knox box is called out on the site plans. So anyway, he says he's trying to get a hold of the chief, just hasn't. Yes, and I have not received anything myself.
Yeah, but when did you do this?
Well, he did it Monday, but he's been on the chief for quite a while. Affecting this information. Just as it is, so.
I guess the flip side would be that the chief did have an issue, so certainly would communicating that to us.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No, in the past, no,
I can read you what he wrote.
no, I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying. We made sure we requested it by our last site walk, and then we also mentioned it too when we did it a year ago, that you're gonna need a letter from the chief.
And he's asked for it, not just Monday, but prior to that. He's had phone calls to the chief, with the chief, and he just hasn't got anything back from the chief.
And see, and there is Lee J will remember, there is a letter from October with certain recommendations, and Henry did update his plan to mirror those recommendations. So I don't know what else we would need from, I mean, other than confirming that's the case, but I think you can compare the letter to the plan and say that, so that would be our position. And I'm Amy McMillan.
That's correct. There were issues regarding 12 walls, egress, and that sort of thing. The chief had responded to that. And that was, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to speed this along. I don't want to hang you guys up, but we need that letter from the fire chief. So I'm going to suggest, and Lee J can slap me if I'm wrong, that we proceed forward and make it a condition of approval that we get that letter from the fire chief, so that that's going to be, you won't have to come back before us, everything will be set.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's fine.
What I would suggest in that regard is the condition be that the code enforcement officer not issuing the building permits until that moment is filed.
Okay. If we could get somebody to make a motion to that effect.
Second?
Motion made by Tom, seconded by Susan, that the codes enforcement officer not issue the building permits until the letter from the fire chief has been received. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous on that motion. And given that, I will then proceed forward with the notice of decision of the site plan review. All site plan review applications shall be evaluated, approved with conditions, or denied based on the following findings of fact. The application was received as a sketch review on October 19th, 2021, at which time the board held a site walk. The submission was made to the board and appeared on the agenda for December 7th. At that time, the planning board tabled the application and requested a third-party stormwater review and opinion from review agent Civil Consultants. J. Stevens of Civil Consultants provided an initial peer review and comments on February 1st, 2022. The applicant adjusted the plan based on the comments and resubmitted the design on March 31st, 2022. The town sent the plans back to Civil Consultants to review the design, who submitted a letter to the town on April 8th indicating that the redesign met the standards. The applicant appeared before the board on May 17th, both with a site walk and follow-up meeting at the regularly scheduled meeting of the board to discuss the site walk. The application was found complete and a date of June 7th was set for the public hearing. The proposed project conforms to all standards of the zoning district and meets or exceeds performance standards specified in section 5, 9, and 10 of this ordinance. All those performance standards have been met. The proposed project has received all applicable federal and state permits. The applicant has received the main DEP permit for this project. The proposed project does not unreasonably impact public safety and fire protection and will not create a financial burden for the town of Arundel in the provision of emergency services and law enforcement to the project site and the neighborhood. This project is a low-impact use, and the site has been designed in a way to accommodate emergency vehicles around the project site. The proposed project will not have an adverse impact upon the quality of surface or groundwater resources. The use is a low water consumption, and the site has appropriate stormwater ponds designed to handle surface water. The project provides adequate stormwater management facilities to produce no additional peak runoff from the site during a 25-year storm event, and will not have an undue impact on municipal stormwater facilities or downstream properties. The applicant's stormwater design will accommodate the 25-year plan with no downstream impacts from the site. The stormwater analysis has been peer-reviewed by J. Stevens of Civil Consultants. Adjustments have been made to the design based on the peer review comments, and now the study has been deemed to meet the standards. The proposed project will not have an adverse on-site and off-site impact upon existing vehicular and pedestrian circulation systems within the community or neighborhood. This project is not a high-volume traffic generator and should not have any impacts on vehicle circulation. There are no sidewalks or pedestrian traffic in this area of town, which is generally commercial in nature and will not impact pedestrian circulation. The proposed project will not have an adverse impact upon environmental quality, critical wildlife habitats, marine resources, important cultural resources, or visual quality of the neighborhood, surrounding environs, or the community. The applicant has provided a no-impact letter from Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and is located on a lot off the Portland Road, a commercially developed area. The proposed project will not produce noise, odors, dust, debris, glare, solar obstruction, or other nuisances that will adversely impact the quality of life of surrounding parcels. The applicant has not produced any evidence to the contrary regarding this project. The proposed project will not have a negative fiscal impact on municipal government. This project should have a positive impact on the fiscal impact of the community, since it requires no services to speak of and will generate taxes as a commercial development. Based on the above findings and conclusions, the Arundel Planning Board hereby approves the Strickland Lane application for Signature Holdings LLC, 1312 Portland Road, map 34, lot 3A, subject to the following conditions. Condition number 1, compliance with all oral statements and written materials submitted to the planning board as part of this deliberation. Number 2, any future changes of any use for any of the units within the building must come back to the planning board to obtain an amended conditional use approval. Number 3, prior to the issuance of certificates of occupancy by the codes of
For the building permit.
building permit, I'm sorry, thank you.
What I drafted for you, Mr. Chairman, is no building permit to be issued for the site until the fire chief approves the plan and places the memo of the project on.
Thank you. So approved by the Arundel Planning Board this 7th day of June, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept and approve the notice of decision for site plan.
Okay,
Can I interject with a quick question? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I don't want to bump up any approval, but I'm concerned about the oral statements in the first condition. Everything that the applicant will be doing has been in writing to this board. So I'm concerned about that, Lee J, about kind of enforcing legal, oral statements that have been made by whom.
Right, yeah, no,
I'm wondering if we could strike that.
well, that's up to the board if they choose to strike that. Any written materials submitted, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much one of the same, in that the applicant does not represent anything that is any different than any of the written materials that we received along the way, so.
So it would suggest that written would be, what I would hate to say is that we said something that was, at a meeting offhand or off cuff that would try to be enforced later. That's what I don't want to happen. I think you're correct, Lee J, that everything that's been submitted in writing has been reiterated orally, and I think that would be one and the same. That would be just a request for clarity. And for condition number 2, just for clarification, that would be if there was a change of use to a conditional use, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because right now they're permitted uses. Thank you.
Okay,
So the first one, Mr. Chairman, if you choose to do it, would say compliance with all written materials submitted to the planning board as part of the application.
I think that makes sense.
yeah. like that.
So, I mean, I guess I would pose as an alternate to the word oral statements. But is it acceptable verbal testimony? I didn't like the condition at all.
I'm still concerned about us going back to the videotape and things like that. I think if the board thinks that what we've represented to you at meetings is consistent with what's written in writing, then written should be sufficient, would be mine.
Yeah,
Suppose.
so I guess my follow-up, is that typical?
We have never had that
Yeah,
before.
that's what I was.
Right, no, I've done that with other communities and I'm trying to start to incorporate that here. But the oral, I mean, I've used that prior with other town legal, not this town legal representation, but other town legal representation suggesting it. But if the board doesn't feel comfortable with that, that's fine.
Can't we just say materials?
Yeah, well, I would say all written material, yes. Written material.
More comfortable with that.
somebody make a motion to
Just amend.
one way or the other.
Well, I'll move that we simplify it by just having compliance with written materials.
Is,
Like in the oral
I'll second
statements.
that.
okay, motion by Tom McGinn, seconded by Susan Roth to strike all oral statements. And any discussion?
Yeah, on H,
No, discussion on the motion.
I'm sorry, we're doing that.
Okay, hearing no discussion on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. That passes unanimously. Now back to the question about the adoption of the notice of decision. Now you can ask about H.
Okay, on H, it said The applicant has not produced any evidence to the contrary regarding this project. It almost seems like just because they haven't produced any evidence doesn't mean that there's no reason that there isn't any. It's almost begging the question, could we
Well-
change that to just say there is no evidence to the contrary?
If that's what you, if that's what you, yes, that's.
See, I would have,
Being able to modify that finding.
I would have stricken that line completely. The
We have to have
the
some-
line that's in red, I would have taken out completely. There's no evidence one way or the other. Does it require a comment?
And why would the applicant produce it? I mean,
Right.
I
Well, yeah,
agree.
that's true.
I mean, that's even more ludicrous.
Well, I was saying, I mean, it would be typical of the applicant to make a statement saying that the proposed use would not have any or would have negligible noise or reduction.
Just way too
Blah, blah, blah. I don't have the application right in front of me. I can't say, I would presume something like that is in there.
Why don't we just say no evidence to the contrary has been produced or whatever?
Well, I think the alternative would be that the proposed use will not create,
Yes, that would be better.
I mean, it's almost like the restatement of what the criteria is.
Yeah.
But
Do we have to have a response to every?
No, see, that, I don't think it requires it.
You have to have some sort of response.
And say NA, not applicable.
I can go on.
it is a.
It is applicable.
Just say,
Is it?
take out,
Okay.
Criteria that we
Yeah.
use for approving an application.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
But
See, I knew Lee J would get me in trouble today.
Well, just that there is no evidence to the contrary.
that's been produced, period.
Yeah, regarding the project.
No, I wouldn't say that's been produced. I would just say there's no evidence to the contrary.
Well, they say produced. I mean, the ludicrous part is to say the applicant has not produced any.
Yeah, but Lee J put that statement in there.
Right. Well,
That's because I put it in, it doesn't.
All right, so I'll make a motion just so we can vote on it either way. That there is, that it would strike this and would say there is no evidence to the contrary regarding this project.
Lee J, you want to edit your own sentence?
Isn't that a motion? That's
It
a
is.
motion.
Is that,
so-
does that
Motion on the
basically have the
floor.
meaning?
So that's the
Yeah.
motion on the
Intended?
floor, Susan, so.
Okay, so we need a second.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjust section H. The response to say that there has been no evidence to the contrary regarding this project. Any questions, any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Then, now, back to the original question. Everybody happy with the changes that have been made? Are we ready to proceed?
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion about the motion itself? Hearing none. All those in favor of granting the permit?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
We'll do these up tomorrow, send them to you, Mr. Chairman. and-
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, so do I.
Mr. Chair, have you already approved of the minutes?
Yes, we did.
Because I saw there
We
was,
walked in together.
yeah, so I was present that night, and I'm not on the minutes,
Okay.
even though it's been approved. We do like that.
We can't hear you, so it's
Well,
discussion.
no, the discussion was that Tom, on May 17th, Tom was here, but he's not showing up as having been present.
I would say that's an admin correction, and we ought to be able to fix it, right? Because it says right in the
Yep.
motion of the minutes that you approved it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think we can just ask Ann to add Tom in and then go from there, because there were no other changes that were made.
I'll make sure admin.
Oh, and does that mean, Susan Roth? Oh, you're in there. You're in
Yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's zoomed in. She's zoomed in.
Good.
Okay. I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the Arundel Planning Board, and it is 7:24, 7:23 according to my clock, and we will go into the Planning Board workshop. The first item on the workshop is the Planning Board meeting policy. You should all have a copy of that because it was emailed to everybody.
We're still recording.
Yes. So have you guys had a chance to look it over? Have any suggestions about it, comments? I did have one, and it's something that when I first wrote this out, I was not sure about.
Can you speak a little louder?
You're quite welcome. When I first wrote this out, I wasn't sure. And it became a discussion at the selectmen's meeting related to item number 3A. It will not be possible for Zoom attendees to comment on any item being discussed at an in-person meeting. But if a member of the planning board is in the remote meeting, and I'll ask Tom to clarify it for me. If we are, one of the members of the planning board is in a remote meeting coming in through Zoom, then we should allow all of the members of the public to comment? Right. Okay. Okay, that's what I thought, but if none of the planning board members are meeting remotely, then the only public that can comment is those that are in the room.
That's my reading.
Okay.
But there are others who have a different meaning.
So to the chair, when we had contractor, I can't remember, or it was an owner, I can't remember what it was, but he was trying to zoom in and we couldn't hear him and he was out of state and he was trying to take part in the meeting. That person wouldn't be able to take part in the meeting and from the way this is written.
Unless one of the members of the planning board has logged in remotely. I think we've solved the problem with being able to hear what happens on the TV. The issue before was that we weren't getting the speakers above to kick in these, I don't know what they call that, but it wasn't connected up properly on the laptop. But Keith has explained to us what needs to be done to make sure that it works properly. So from now on, we should all, instead of it sounding really small and faint and in the distance as if it's coming through the TVs, it won't be. It'll be coming through the speaker system above. So anybody who logs in should be able to be heard.
But they won't be able to log in to speak unless there's a planning board person on Zoom.
They won't be able to comment unless a planning board member has logged in remotely.
Is there any amendment or ways to go, again, if that person was the owner and he was in, like, say, Connecticut, and he wanted to take part in the meeting, and wasn't able to come, he would not be able to take part in it?
Is that part of the state law, Tom?
It says, policy adopted, must provide members of the public a meaningful opportunity to attend by remote methods when members of the public body participate by.
Okay. Then yes, that is, If no planning board member signs in remotely, then no members of the public will be allowed to comment.
So we need to make that clear when we're talking, when we're setting up things, because that has not been the case. And so, like I said, there was a member of their team was here, and there was one member that was remote. It wasn't like, but there was someone there and he tried to take part, but couldn't because of technical, but I'm just saying, relaying that information to people so that they're not assuming they can because they have been in the past.
Mhm.
That needs to be very clear to people that are far away.
That should be part of your minutes.
Yes.
Your agenda, when you state your agenda at the top, it should state, you know.
Like masks are required for the meeting today.
You can listen remote, but participation needs to be in person.
Yep.
And then if you have a planning board member that's out, that's approved through the chair, then you state that in your agenda, that planning board members will be attending remotely, the public is allowed to attend remotely.
That will resolve the issue.
A lot of people, I could talk last time, this time I can't, I mean, it's gonna mess people up.
With that,
I think it's gonna mess people up because if you don't somehow make it clear ahead of time, you're gonna, hey, I called in last week, I could talk this week, I can't,
so your mode of operation should be in person, right? Really, that's your mode of operation is in person, and it should be a
I don't think anybody's
not a
arguing.
normal situation for remote.
Nobody's arguing that, Dan. We agree.
No, I'm
just saying that. whether or
Planning board
not
workshop
they
involves
can be
the
remote,
selectmen.
You know,
Well, I think the solution to put it at the top of the agenda, the same way right now it says masks are required.
Right.
We'll put it at the top of the agenda and say, if a planning board member is meeting remotely, then the public will be allowed to comment. If there are no planning board members remotely, the public is not allowed to comment. You must attend in person. And if you're out of state,
Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, if you're out of state, I'm sorry, we can't accommodate everybody on everything that goes on. Jamie?
I'm sorry, I mean, not to wordsmith what you're just saying, but I would say it conversely, in that if the standard policy is to not allow Zoom participation. If by chance, one of the board members is attending or participating remotely or via Zoom, then the opportunity will also be opened up for the
okay.
public to do that.
Yeah, good point.
But make it the sort of the policy right up front that, you're not guaranteed the ability to participate if you are here on via Zoom.
Okay, yeah, that'll work. And we need to add that right now, it simply says that it will not be possible for Zoom attendees to comment on any item discussed at an in-person meeting. I need to adjust that so that it reflects the fact that if a planning board member is present, then the public will be allowed to participate remotely.
Yeah, but you may want to make that announcement at the start of each one of the meetings, whether you have a remote participant or not, that this meeting will not allow, or this meeting does allow.
Yep.
If you look at the RSU 21 agendas, at the very top where you see masks are required, they list there what the link is and all of the information. You can do the same thing there. List it right there, right at the very top instead of at the end. That's the first thing that they see. And then they'll know this meeting will not be held remote, or this meeting will be held remote, and here's the link.
Next to masks are required because we're requiring masks until this is.
Yes, yeah, up at that top section. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I'll just scribble that in here.
there's still gonna be people.
Well,
Okay. That was the one thing I saw that after I had gone to the selectmen's meeting, that we looked at it and said, okay, we need to look at putting that in here, but I didn't have it in here at the time and I hadn't bothered to change it. I figured I'd bring it up at this meeting because this is not a finalized document yet.
Number 4 says, are we ready to move on to this?
Yes.
Number 4 says, in the event that it's not practical to meet in person, but the link will be provided on Zoom for Zoom. We should be providing that link regardless.
We are. That link will always show up.
And that shouldn't be there.
So we should say that,
Yeah,
but the link, the Zoom
The-
link will always be available. Because you've clarified when people can participate and 3.
just you could
Okay.
just state that the link for the Zoom meeting will be posted along with the agenda at least 7 days in advance of the meeting.
Well, yeah, but it'll always be posted.
It will always, yeah,
Mhm.
but not as part of the previous statement.
And I'll take out the last statement, members of the public that wish to speak. Well,
Should
no,
number
because
4 just
that's,
be
this is in
That's
the
in
instance
person.
of the fact that the board itself cannot meet, is going to be meeting remotely and not face to face. That's the board, not an individual member.
Okay, Yeah.
Well, the question I guess that I have is when I'm hearing from the other board members is that if that statement is going to be on every agenda going forward, regardless of whether you're meeting remotely or not, that statement should probably find its way into the bylaws rather than on the remote meeting policy, because it becomes part of the routine process for this board going forward.
that's a good point. So
Which is why I have the bylaws. But yeah, we can put that in. All right.
It just seems redundant.
Point, Jeff, because you're kind of mixing and matching two things here. One is your meeting policy, and what we're talking about is participation policy, which is what the statute did, not what the meeting policy. So we've got two things that we're, yeah, and I think he's right. In your bylaws, you should deal with your meeting procedures and policies, and then have to adopt the policy with respect to remote participation, which is what our board does.
And the boards are separate, so.
I suppose number 2 already addresses the link will be posted, so maybe that's enough. Doesn't need to be in number 4.
It's redundant, so it makes it more confusing,
Yeah,
Okay, so
I think.
anything else, gentlemen, ladies? Yes.
In your current agenda, you have a statement at the very top. Again, this meeting will be conducted remotely by video, blah, 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 blah. And then down on the bottom, you say the Zoom link is for viewing only. And I think that can confuse some people. But as soon as you say this meeting will be conducted remotely, people are thinking that they can participate remotely. So I think you want to clear that up a little bit.
Yep.
How that works.
Well, that goes to the comment that we were having at the top, that if a member of the planning board is remotely meeting, the public will be allowed to discuss. And I think we can pretty much take that top sentence on that page and move it over to the top of the agenda.
I would, unless your standard should be that this meeting will be available for viewing on Zoom. Paraphrase it, but this meeting will be available for viewing on Zoom, for viewing only on Zoom. If something happens that a planning board can't, then that's an additional statement that you can put that says due to whatever, planning board members will be attending remotely and the public can participate remotely, something to that effect. I wouldn't put that on every single meeting, only when it applies.
How will you know it applies if someone's sick? How will you know if something happens?
Because you have to notify me in advance that
Correct,
you're not
7
going
days
to be
ahead
there.
of time that you're ill.
But it does create the problem because we try to get this out within 7 days. And if all of a sudden one of the planning board members comes down sick, we're not going to be able to get it posted to that effect.
Listen, what did we do before we had this situation?
But we do have the situation.
Remember? Excuse me. If
This is our
members were
meeting.
sick and they couldn't attend the meetings, and they wouldn't attend the meeting.
Yep.
Or they send their notes. I was on the planning board for many years, and sometimes everybody's here, sometimes somebody is sick, right? So you just send the notes, or you send your information, or your questions. You know, I mean, this isn't a big thing, right? I mean, I don't see the real big issue.
I didn't realize this was public discussion. I thought it was a planning board discussion.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Yeah,
Yeah, Marty?
if you have to give it a 7-day notice, who knows when you test positive or not? They ain't gonna tell, you aren't gonna have a 7-day notice.
Well, the only reason that the 7-day notice was there is because we have to post the agenda within 7 days. And I want, if somebody wasn't going to be able to make it, if you were going to be out of town, for example,
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
uh, then it would work. But you're right, if you're sick, then it's another issue. We'll have to work something out.
That's the only point I was, out of town, other things, family events, that's all possible. I mean, if a family event, if you're gonna be out of town, then, and you still wanna participate out of town for the meeting, you still can.
Yes. Because you were going to be out, that's like, not the next meeting. The meeting on June 21st is going to be canceled because we have nothing. Nobody has given us any paperwork. So, but if we had somebody who was going to give us paperwork, I'm going to be in Newfoundland on that day. It's going to be kind of hard for me to drive back and make a meeting. So I would have logged in remotely. Maybe. I'm confused as to what time it is in Newfoundland. Because there's a 30-minute time difference and I don't know if they're before us or behind us.
Before us.
Be whether they're before.
I don't know.
So now we're ahead.
No, I'm sorry, it's not Newfoundland because I'm going to Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon, which is part of France, and it's a half-hour time difference.
You'll figure it out.
No, I won't. I'm never going to, I don't care what time it is.
Is there a cell phone service up there?
Believe it or not.
It's like magic.
So it's just. gonna depend
Okay.
on-
So at any rate, I will clean this up and I will get it out to everybody. And then we will look at it again.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is a presentation on LD 2003, the Affordable Housing Law by Lee J.
Great, thank you. I say, I think, because this law, the only thing I'm gonna editorialize, the presentation itself is right on state law, but the only thing I'll editorialize is that this law has flipped zoning on its head in the state of Maine. And it's going to change development patterns and development the areas. So I'll leave my editorial comment to that, and talk to you about the law. So it addresses the impacts of zoning for affordable housing developments, for vacant land development, and developed residential zoning lots. And that's how the law has been broken down in this presentation, 3 very specific sections. So on topic 1, which is the affordable housing developments. First start by stating that the state has required that the Maine State Housing Authority is going to set production goals that increase the availability of affordability of all types of housing in all parts of the state. The department shall establish regional housing production goals based on the statewide housing production goal. In establishing these goals, the department shall establish measurable standards and benchmarks for success of the goals, consider information submitted to the department from municipalities about current or prospective housing developments and permits issued for the construction of housing. Consider any other information as necessary to meet the goals pursuant to this subsection. So that's very obscure, and it still is, because rulemaking on this law has not occurred yet, which means that rulemaking through the Department of Economic Development, DECD, and the Department of Agriculture, DACF, Conservation Forest and Agriculture, have to put their heads together and work with Main State Housing to establish what they believe are these goals of the numbers of units of affordable housing should be established in each part of the state. And then they're going to use that as measurable to see if the target rates have been met. What that means or how that's going to happen is still yet to be seen.
So just out of curiosity,
Yep.
does that mean that they're going to tell each town what the number of affordable units has to be?
Well, the assumption could be yes, but again, we don't know yet because rulemaking hasn't occurred. But do understand that if your comprehensive plan, I don't want to confuse this because I'm going to talk about comprehensive planning again. If your comprehensive plan is a plan consistent with the state law, then you're supposed to have a target rate number of affordable housing units in your plan that your town is supposed to shoot.
We've never had to take that into consideration in the past. We've just looked at the number of housing permits that get issued.
Correct. Not affordable housing permits. There is
Oh,
a
oh.
definition, and we'll talk about it here. There is a definition of affordable housing, which only addresses one part of this bill. And I'll get to that as well as we go on. So for an affordable housing development on or after July 1, 2023, and that date's important because the state law says that every town is supposed to have their new ordinances in place by July 1 of 2023. I sit in my office and go, I have the prospect of working with 39 towns that all have different town meeting dates. How are we going to have these ordinances modified in time for town meetings by next July? And, oh, by the way, what happens if at town meeting, people in that town vote this change down? No one has told us that yet the law says the municipalities shall do everything that I'm going to explain.
Lee J,
Yes,
on the affordable housing density page,
yep,
it talks about public water and sewer or comparable systems.
yeah, I'm going to get to that.
So what happens if a town's infrastructure, Arundel, for instance,
Yep,
doesn't have the infrastructure
yep.
to
I've already-
support
I've
the kind
already-
of development that they're speaking of?
Yep, so let me get through this and I will address that for you. Because,
Okay.
that is an important question.
I got a question before you get there. What about the whole affordable housing in the school? Are they taking that into consideration?
No, they're not. Let me get through this.
I'm just throwing that in the.
Let me get through. So, under the definition, it says for the purpose of this section, affordable housing development is for rental housing, the development in which a household whose income does not exceed 80% of the median income for the area as defined by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD under the United States Housing Act of 1937, and I won't go through public law. As amended, I'm going to take this off, please. Sorry. Can afford the majority of the units that the developer designates as affordable without spending more than 30% of the household's monthly income on housing units. Now, that is already in the Maine State Housing Law that addresses what is affordable housing, and that's looked at on a municipality by municipality basis. For owning a development in which a household whose income does not exceed 120% of the median income for the area is defined by as amended, and can afford the majority of the units the developer designates as affordable without spending more than 30% of the household income on housing units. So I'm gonna skip ahead, but it also relates back to this. Basically, if a developer comes into town and says, I want to do an affordable housing development that meets that definition, they need to provide us the income levels or the unit rental rates or housing sale rates of that development, and they have to be guaranteed for a 30-year window in order to meet this definition for this law.
But that's if they're coming in and saying they want to develop affordable housing.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So now we get to the density issue, and this is the big part of this law with the affordable housing developments. Municipalities shall allow affordable housing development where multi-family dwellings are allowed, having dwelling unit density of at least 2.5 times the base density that is otherwise allowed in that location, and may not require more than 2 off-street parking spaces for every 3 units, or 1.5 spaces for each. Development must be in a designated growth area of a municipality consistent with 4349A, subparagraph or paragraph A or B, which is the comprehensive plan law, and a growth area that's designated in your plan. With a spec or by a, development must be served by a public special district or other centrally managed water system and public special district or other comparable sewer systems. The development must comply with the minimum lot size requirements in accordance with Title 12, which is the establishment of minimum lot sizes in the state. So the only way they can do that type of development here is if you have either a public water or sewer system, or some centrally located public water or sewer system, or a comprehensive plan that is consistent with the state law and has a growth area in it. Or there's another or in there, and it is basically having a DOT, basically, it doesn't say it like that, but it's the DOT compact urban area. So Arundel does not have a compact urban area. Arundel does not have public sewer and water to speak of. There is a small portion down in the southern part. Everything I have found, the comprehensive plan is not consistent with the state law. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a strike against it any longer because the state growth management law has been gutted over the years, and I won't get into that whole thing. But I'm not sure that for affordable housing developments that Arundel qualifies to require that type of development to occur.
Because of the lack of public water and public sewer.
Lack of public water, public sewer, lack of an urban compact area defined by the DOT or the Federal Highway Administration, or a consistent comprehensive plan that has you have an identified growth area, but it's not in a consistent plan through the state growth management law.
We're consistent, I don't know, it's stated in our comprehensive plan, that the other book there, but what do you mean by consistent?
So, I'll give a little bit of history in addition to that, but back in 1988, the state developed the growth management law, which was development comprehensive planning for every community. And at the time they had carrot was 50% of the cost of a comprehensive plan was paid for by the state for every town. And then once your plan, it had a series of elements within the plan that had to be met under the state law. And once your plan was developed, you would send it to the state planning office, which no longer exists anymore. And they would review the document and check a bunch of boxes off and say, yes, your plan is consistent with the state law. Since that time, the state planning office has been disbanded. 2 people have been moved from what was like a 30-person department to a 2-person department at the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. And 1 person reviews any and all comprehensive plans in the state. But a lot of the law that said you shall or you must for developing a comprehensive plan has been municipality made.
Wouldn't we have known that we weren't consistent with the state? When we did our comp plan the last time we did it, we sent it to the state, and the state approved it. I don't recall anything ever coming back saying we're consistent with that.
I looked, because again, we serve 39 towns, I looked at the list from the state of who has this plans down here. There's only 5% that are currently.
Where are we?
Not on
Not.
unbeknownst to us, I guess.
We're number 8.
So why what's in our favor?
So today, I don't want to get off this long, but basically today, or back in '88, and moving forward to today, what it meant was back when the state was taking comprehensive planning seriously, it meant that every department like Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, DOT, DEP, whenever any of the grant programs came out, if you had a consistent comprehensive plan and you applied for a grant, you were kind of moved to the top of the list or closer to the top because you had a consistent comprehensive plan. None of those departments even look at that. They don't even care about it. So, the whole thing is kind of state law says, well, if you want to be consistent, here's the criteria you need to meet, but you don't have. And so right now, Arundel does not have a consistent comprehensive plan, which again, it's not, in this case, it's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. So the question is really going to beg itself, and it might be something I need to eventually talk to Peter about, is to have a comprehensive plan, not consistent with state law, but as a growth area. Where does that fall in this law? We don't know that yet. This law, so in my estimation, is going to work for us. So moving right along. It states also in this portion of the law, before approving an affordable housing development, the municipality shall require the owner of the affordable housing development have executed a restrictive covenant reported in the appropriate registry of deeds for the benefit of the enforceable by a party acceptable to the municipality to ensure that for at least 30 years after completion of the construction, for rental housing, and it goes back to the 80% of the income and 120% of the income. So basically, it's saying that if you're going to do an affordable housing development and you want to be able to do it at 2.5 times the density requirement and so on and so forth, you got to guarantee that housing will be affordable for 30 years.
We do have those numbers. They are available.
Yes.
I
don't have them tonight, but they are.
Yeah. I'm curious about the last 2 sentences. For rental housing, occupancy of all the units designated affordable in the development will remain limited to households at or below 80% of the local area median income at the time of initial occupancy. So once somebody moves out, they're no longer going to be considered affordable. I lived there for 3 years and I'm affordable and I move out. I was the initial occupant. Does that mean that they're not going to be initial? They're not going to be,
I think each occupant would be a new initial
Don't forget, yes, because don't forget that affordability dollar amount is going to change. So if you live there 3 years and someone new comes in, that number may have moved up by, what, 9% over 3 years, 3% a year.
So they've just modified the term initial.
It's your
Right,
addition.
but it has to be guaranteed to be affordable based on what is the affordable housing index at that time.
So when the recession hits and everybody goes the other way,
So DJ, so what this law basically does is it puts the pressure on towns that have infrastructure to develop this kind of housing, And-
To allow, well, not even to allow, to accept this kind of.
to
housing.
accept it.
Yes,
Right, so, and it's a great deal of pressure because those towns like Arundel that don't qualify for various reasons seem to be able to skirt the issue and maintain their rural pristine character in a way that
let's get to the rest of the.
Saco and some of the other more highly developed towns can't.
Then I'll see what your thoughts
So are they, is it that they're going to start forcing the towns without the infrastructure to support this kind of housing to actually develop it going
Let's get through the
forward?
rest of the-
Yeah, okay, that's what I
They're all
wanted.
very good questions, but I think,
Okay.
I hope you'll get your answers. Yes.
Okay. Affordable housing. Okay.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, how we do it?
I was thinking the same thing.
They're going
Back
to
in,
force towns.
with the major prices that we got now, who knows?
Get them
who can
standards.
afford what they afford, even if you live in a house for your heating or anything else.
So that's on the spot.
I can't answer.
Well, they're going to make us join,
I was never affordable.
participate.
I mean, if
I don't
you,
get it.
if you pay $200-300 for oil tank, to fill and stuff down there, now it's $1,000.
All right, let me move on. A lot more to cover here. And a lot more questions I know you're gonna have later on.
I'm waiting with bated breath for you to answer that one.
So, under the development, again, housing development still, uses allowed, notwithstanding any provisions of the law to the contrary, except as provided in 10 and 12, for any area in which housing is allowed, a municipality shall allow structures with up to 2 dwelling units per lot, if that lot does not contain an existing dwelling unit. So if you have a vacant lot, technically, single-family housing zoning has gone out the window. Except that the municipality shall allow up to 4 dwelling units per lot, if that lot does not contain an existing dwelling unit. So again, if it's a vacant lot, someone can put up to 4 units on that parcel, regardless of what the zoning is. So if it's a 1 acre lot, you've got a 20,000 square foot parcel, you can have up to 4 units on it. Not containing existing dwelling unit, and the lot is located in a designated growth area within the municipality consistent with 4349, the growth management law. Comprehensive plan. Or if the lot is serviced by a public special district or other centrally managed water system and public special district or other centrally managed sewer system. Here, public, oh yeah. Somebody's on there. This is a cut and paste on the state. Sewer district or other comparable sewer system in municipality without a comprehensive plan. So if you have sewer water and you don't have a comprehensive plan, you still have to accept that type of development. Up to 4 units on a vacant parcel. Municipality shall allow one lot with 1 existing dwelling unit. So here's the single family housing. Allow unit, the addition of up to 2 dwelling units. 1 additional dwelling unit within or attached to an existing structure. or one additional detached dwelling unit, or one of each.
Wait, but it doesn't say that the structure has to be a house.
It does say.
It says, so it has to be a residence.
Yes,
So one structure has to be attached,
either attached or internal as an apartment.
okay?
type of situation.
And the other,
A freestanding.
and does it designate how big?
We will designate that when we get to place all of this into the zoning. ordinance. It does say that it has to be a minimum of 190 square feet, but at this point, there's no designated maximum size, although your current ordinance has a maximum designated size, I believe it's 800 square feet.
It's 25% of the square footage of the property, of the original house,
Or
or
less.
800 square feet, whichever is less.
Right.
Correct. Now, the other part of that is that the towns are not allowed to modify the setbacks or any other provisions that might disallow this type of development from occurring. So.
What?
We can't
again,
stop it by modifying the
Can't modify the
setbacks.
setback.
Correct.
But we can use the setback that we currently have.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And we can make changes to those setbacks until 2023, is that correct? And this law is enacted?
As long as whatever we do is consistent with our comprehensive plan, regardless of growth management and all that.
I'm not saying that I'm anticipating doing that, but is there going to be a rush to modify
I would
setbacks
say
and
you
things
don't
like
want-
that?
I would say that if you want to look at modification of that, you don't want it tied to anything that's insinuating you're trying to.
Right.
prohibit this.
Understood.
Lee J, can I, just for clarification, you can do one additional unit within or attached to the existing,
Yep,
or an additional one that's detached,
or both.
or both. So you could have the second, have your principal and then an ADU that's detached. And then if you want a third one would have to be attached, one,
Correct.
okay.
On the detached ADU, would our current ordinance that requires it to be connected to the same water system and the same sewer system be in compliance with the ordinance?
That's what we require.
That's what we require right now.
Has to go to, you know, what's created for that housing. So if you have a house that has set up for just a house.
Yep.
You have to add additional things, or does that stop us from happening because it's not appropriate to go on that new deal and that.
So. Way ahead here. Yeah, no, that's fine. And I'm just saying, my presentation was way ahead. But general rules throughout the law, shoreline zoning still applies. So they can't say, well, you know, the ordinance says I can do it. If you're in shoreline zoning still trumps. it. Subdivision law still applies. So if someone wants to do 4 units and they've never had 4 units on that parcel, we can apply subdivision. Restrictive covenants or HOAs overrule the law. So if a development has an HOA that says no second units or anything like that, then we might have to allow that. All established setbacks must apply for additional units. Growth permits do not apply to ADUs. I do not believe in them here.
They do not.
Towns can still adopt short-term rental ordinances. So to do that. Now, ADUs must be 190 square feet in size, and towns can establish the maximum. Water and wastewater, the owner of affordable housing development shall provide written verification to the municipality that each unit of the housing development is connected to adequate water and wastewater services before the municipality may certify the development for occupancy. bridge verification under this subsection must include a housing unit is connected to a public, special district, or other comparable sewer system, proof of adequate service to support any additional flow created by the unit, and proof of payment for the connection to the sewer system. A housing unit is connected to a septic system. Proof of adequate sewage disposal for subsurface wastewater. The septic system must be verified as adequate by the local plumbing inspector under section 4221. Plans for the subsurface wastewater disposal must be prepared by a licensed site evaluator in accordance with the subsurface wastewater disposal rules. If a housing unit is connected to a public, special district, or other centrally managed water system, proof of adequate water service to support anything by the unit, and for the connection and the volume supply of unit water required for the unit, and if the unit is connected to a well, proof of access to potable water. Any tests of an existing well or proposed well must indicate that the water supply is portable and acceptable to the customer. So
Okay.
there are the checks and balances in that regard. They would have to provide an applicable ADUs for the four units being placed on empty lot.
So that affects the non-emotive one, because the septic system is going to be your, we don't have public.
Correct.
We don't have public sewer.
Correct.
You have predominantly septic, you
Yep.
don't have well, so
Yep.
this paid sub affects mostly on
Correct.
versus the rest.
That is right. And 8 years really issues so far that I've seen here. Although the other part of it, you at least would have to require 2 units on it. That doesn't mean people are going to want to do that. I'm sure there's still people who want to have their single family home on their parcel and done with it, but there are speculators who are going to want to build 2 units and, sell. The kicker about this is that the affordable housing piece of this law is only for the affordable housing development. There's nothing in the law that requires the ADUs or the up to 4 units on a parcel to meet the affordable housing requirement.
So this is needed out of the before versus currently retroactive, because they are put this on my thing.
Well, you wouldn't have to call it affordable housing.
So I think
Yes, yes.
the way I think you said it.
Did I,
New things moving forward, considered affordable housing development,
Well,
or development of affordable housing, I should say, as to me.
if it's affordable housing development, which is basically an apartment complex or condo complex. But anybody can come into town today, well, I shouldn't say, until this law takes effect, which the towns don't have to adopt it until July of 23, rulemaking hasn't occurred. If someone came through the door today and said, oh, I've got an empty lot, I want to put 4 units on it because I meet this criteria, no one can do. Have to wait until July of 23. Or until town meeting adopts the ordinance.
did I understand you correctly? Under this law, the 4 unit on a brand new lot does not have to be affordable housing.
Correct,
Seriously.
seriously.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
So, I mean, the only thing about this is that for years and years, everyone talked about growth management and trying to contain development to the service centers of those communities that have services available. And 2/3 of this law is going to encourage sprawl to happen in the hinterlands where municipalities may not have the ability to provide transportation services. And that means even adequate road systems. I mean, someone called our office the other day, one of our municipalities, that was looking at this law and said, well, what if someone came in and did a 20-lot subdivision? What does that mean? So someone comes in and creates a 20-lot subdivision as of July, of 23. Technically, they can come in and say, we're putting 4 units on every lot if they met the standards. So, when you start reviewing the impacts of a 20-lot subdivision, it's now a 60-lot subdivision for traffic impact studies and sewer and water capabilities, because the potential is there that they could put 40 units under the lot.
Does that hit our goal ordinance? What does that do to our goal ordinance? Does it affect that at all, or?
It does, as it relates to only the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, you cannot count them towards your goal permit.
But the scenario that you just stated, so that is,
I think that's still counted. There's something in that part of the law, because again, it's law broken into 3 sections. There's nothing in the law that says that those are exempt. They're only exempt from the ADUs. We haven't interpreted this so far, but I can tell you, even in our office, we talk about this thing every day. And every day, new scenarios, what ifs. Because we're probably, it's gonna be helping most of the towns in North County change their ordinances to make this work, and every town is different.
So Lee J, let me ask you this. I'm going to use the 20-lot subdivision that just got brought up. And you've come to us and we have approved you for a 20-lot subdivision. And then it becomes July 1st of 2023, and you come back and you say, I want to put 60 units in there. Can we say, no, you've already been before us and sought approval on a specific plan, even though you haven't broken ground? Can we say no?
Does he even have to come back?
Well,
Yes.
if we, depending on how we write it, because subdivision law still applies, we could attribute, 3 units or more on any parcel as a subdivision. Can you say no? That's gonna be a great question, and I think this law is going to create a lot of lawsuits and a lot of rich attorneys. Because I don't know.
Tom's over there
The law
going,
says-
yes.
The law says you shall, municipality, you shall do. It doesn't say you may do. So I don't know how that's going to impact, your ability to say no.
I mean, there's no different than today if somebody has a large parcel and says, I want to put in 10 units, and then they come back and it gets all approved, and they do some math and they go, you know what, I can stick a couple more, they come back to the planning board.
Right,
You
but
can't turn them down, see, that would be the same argument, you can't turn them down.
Well, no, they wouldn't have to come back.
So what stops me right now with this law? If I've got a 4-acre lot and I go add a couple ADUs on it, and then 2 years down the road, I decide I want to split those and sell those off.
You can't because they were permitted as an ADU.
And that'll stop you from splitting it and selling them off and then putting 3 more on it.
Could they,
hey, Paul,
could they,
you're going to have the same water system and the same sewer system for the original house. You can't split that off.
do they have to be retained under the single ownership? Or can they be like condos where you have 2 ADUs? Can they be sold?
No, if they're an ADU, they're accessory units, they have to still run with the ownership.
No.
So they have to be some.
In the other case where an owner can build up to 4 lots brand new, they could be done as
Those would be
private.
condos, yes.
Okay.
Because those are not ADUs.
And then each one of them could have 2 ADUs attached to it.
Possibly. depending
Hey,
on
you know.
development.
And if the septic supports it,
Right.
Correct.
I think that's one of the things that, I don't want to say that it's going to save Arundel, but I think the fact that building 4 units on a 1-acre lot The system will not support it. The soils will not support that.
So Susan had asked previously, you said, is there any mitigation to, or negative aspect to one of those, not have septic?
But you don't have to.
In other words, that you're gonna be doing, you can't, in other words, a lot of these things cannot be applied to the Arundel because you don't have basic support.
Right now.
Right now.
The question is, can the state make us?
Well, as it relates to the, as it relates to the affordable housing development,
Yes.
you don't meet those criteria.
There's
So no one-
penalty.
Well,
We don't have this, so.
No, there's no penalty, but you also are not in a position to accept or host affordable housing development.
Correct, I understand what you're saying, but before you said that there was a portion, because this law was put into effect, one of the portion of every town had a percentage of affordable housing with it. That was part of the discussion back in the day. So I was curious, because we do not have the availability to do this, is there any issue with us or the town not being able to do it?
No, I don't know that right now because again, rulemaking hasn't occurred at the state level. And they're still going to have to set these target numbers. I don't know whether they're gonna set them as a York County, we need to have X number of units, or now every town has to meet a certain number. We don't know that.
So it's a preliminary stage of that discussion that we were talking about. Right?
Yes.
It's going to be interesting.
I got it, but,
Yes,
okay, water. Okay, you have a well, you have slow and everything else. Since you've had this, yes, whatever.
he's asked, yeah.
It doesn't say any of the towns have to request have a water test for PFAS. Because you have to have good water. And if you have PFAS in the water, like the water, and when they don't test it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It just says you have to test affordability. You know. What, yeah, I mean, what that just, big picture, I don't know.
I'm just throwing that as a.
See, I'd be more
Point, you said, 1 acre lot, 4 units. Septic systems are designed by number of bedrooms.
Yep,
So you could have a 4-bedroom home.
you could.
4 single-bedroom units would really be an issue.
It wouldn't, but what if you were to build something that had 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms and you put up 2 duplexes, each of which has 3 bedrooms? You now have 12 bedrooms using 1 septic system. That's the kind of thing. If it's four single bedroom units, I don't think it's a problem. But I think if you end up with multiple units, you could have a problem. That's all I'm wondering about. How do you handle that?
So, and that is an interesting discussion. I happen to have been on a subgroup that was formed by Maine Municipal Association. When not the law was being developed, but when the study was being discussed that got to this law. And one of the things that I pushed really hard for, and no one wanted to talk about it, was, requiring numerous septic system designs and having DHS look at alternative septic systems of today that are much higher, efficiency. Thanks, Marty. And because the 20,000 square foot lot size and the design standards that we have are like 50 years old. And there are systems out there like the RUSA system, which is one of the state has recognized, which are very efficient. Probably have, much more, many more units on smaller lots, but they didn't even want to look at that as an issue. So we're stuck with, the current plumbing requirements for some designs. I don't know what our position could be on requiring high efficiency systems.
But the higher the density, the higher efficiency of the system you get, the more opportunity that you're gonna have for higher density, right, which is what the one that we really want.
Right, no, Absolutely, but you also, yeah, I mean, in a way, I guess the disadvantage is an advantage, because if the soils aren't gonna handle, too many units, then that's one way it's gonna go growing down through this law.
Do we have-
So, that's it in a nutshell. We are not ready to, we being SMPDC and working with all the town, are not ready to forge ahead on ordinance amendments with the town, because we have to wait and see what rulemaking does. There was a presentation. The whole other piece of this was, there was a Maine Association of Planners, meeting 2 days ago, actually last Friday, and Representative Gear, or somewhere around there, was that presentation touting the law, and said that the state still has a number of other zoning matters that they're going to take care of to clear things up. What that cryptic message is as it relates to zoning, we don't know. But single family zoning as we know it is being taken out of the hands of the municipalities.
Well, it looks like we're going to have fun days ahead.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it raised more questions than it answered, but that's okay.
It certainly does. Like I said, we talk about it every day in Ashland, and it still raises questions for us as well.
Okay, so I have one other item to discuss, and that is the meetings coming up. June 21st, we have nothing on the agenda. So we're going to cancel that meeting. The following meeting is scheduled for July 5th, which is the day after the 4th of July. And I'm not sure that anybody will be ready for a meeting on that date. So I'm suggesting that we push that meeting back to July 12th. And then we have the following meeting on July 19th, which would be the regularly scheduled date. So that for 2 weeks in a row in July, we will have a meeting. Okay? Unless you all want to get together on July 5th,
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
You know, I'm looking at it going, it's the 4th of July. If people are going to go away, they may not be around on July 5th.
So right now, there's no new.
We have nothing.
Nothing in the works. So pretty slow time. It's unusual for us.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's a good time to.
Yeah.
So we won't be keeping anybody waiting as far as we know.
Nobody's in the lineup. Nobody's come to us with anything.
Still in the pipeline, folks have dealt with initially, but nothing has been submitted or come back into us.
And just so Susan Sinnet knows, we had a site walk tonight where the applicant did not show up, so we did not do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was there at 6:30, thinking I was there early for a 7 PM walkthrough. And my partner, Peter, actually was set for you guys all a while back.
Yeah.
And our managing director, Sarah Deering, said, okay, they should be all set for 7 o'clock, just make sure you're there. So I got home from work at 5 o'clock, closed the line, over there for 6:30, and waited around until 7:30 and said, hey guys, nobody's here, what's going on? And sure enough, they took this meeting and said, no, you're supposed to be there at 6 o'clock. Okay, 7
Well,
o'clock.
they'll
So
have
I
to,
apologize, obviously, because
they'll have to show up at the July 12th meeting and we will reschedule the site walk.
sure, yeah, happy to do that. Yeah, and I can do that.
There are other timelines, I don't want to get into it, we should talk about the project. Representative this year, but there are other timelines in play here that may require submission.
That's true, but that's something that is outside
Yes.
the control of this board. So we're going to look at that site walk.
Correct.
So Well, I'll make a motion. I think we need a formal vote on that. So I'll make a motion that we meet. Oh, good. Did we adjourn?
Mhm.
We did. All right.
Yeah, we did. This is just a workshop now.
Okay,
Apologies.
okay.
Okay.
Mixed communications there, and since neither of the other two could be there, and I live close by. So sure, I'm happy to go take care of walkthrough. 7 o'clock, so, around 6:30.
Yeah. Nope, that's quite okay. Those things happen. Well, at this,
Did you sign in?
I'm not yet, but I will. I didn't want to interrupt.
So we don't have to adjourn, just the meeting's over.
And
That's right.
we'll need 2 copies of the plan sets here for signing.
Okay, good.
Are the pens are there?
okay.
Looks like probably
So
any pen would work.
everybody signed the documents, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you on the 12th of July.
Hey,
Nice.
wow.
Yeah, Marty?
It's a long
Did you
break.
go to California?
I just got back this morning.
I'm leaving,
You-
so I wasn't
I
gonna
thought
even
you
be
were
here.
already there.
I was.